let's get going. So I actually figured we'd maybe start today with a bit of a demo. So I've got some slides as always that talk through the strategies. I was actually thinking, how do I strategize this if we can't actually understand what it can do? So I'm going to actually stop sharing and just take us through a bit of a live demo, and then we'll touch on the communication pieces, because I think we actually haven't done a demo yet. So we've done like a light demo. So let's give this a go. So this is the chat interface. This is the interface that most users will be familiar with. They can access this from Teams. They can access this from their Windows app. There's also a browser version. And you'll notice that if you go to office.com, I think we provided a lot of guidance. Yeah, go for it, Al.
A question, seeing as I don't work for Microsoft. You've ruined this for everyone, right? Because everyone now gets this experience, right? Including the desktop app, not to be confused with the consumer version of Copilot versus the enterprise version, which are two separate Windows apps, right? But you're now getting this and the agentic flavor inside of your favorite application of choice, irrespective of the license, right? You get the chat interface everywhere, right?
You get the chat interface everywhere, which just really allows you to search the web, but it doesn't do much more than that. And I think that's the caveat that we have to tell people. Like, you can summarize limited information with the free version or the value-added version that they get, but you don't get the full agentic AI assistant or personal assistant kind of value that you would get from the full license. But anyway, let's have a poke around here and see what we can do. So the first thing that I often just show people is actually ask it, what can you do with text, images, audio, and video? Because a lot of people don't actually understand what generative AI is or what generative AI can do. And so here we get some really good examples across the data that we're kind of familiar with. So we've got summarize, we've got draft, we've got analyze, we've got coding, we've got images, we've got extract text, we've got all sorts of examples that we can kind of showcase to people to get ideas of what we could potentially do with generative AI. Then it also tells you what you can do from an audio perspective. So we've got speech to text. We can analyze audio for sentiment. We can help with voiceover scripts or podcast planning, presentation building, all these sorts of aspects. But it gives you some footnotes of what it can't do as well. And this is really cool, because previously it would just say, oh, I can analyze video and I can do all the stuff. But here it says I can't watch videos or play videos, but I can assist with planning, editing, and analyzing the videos. So it also helps us get a sense of what are the different like models that are almost available in the backend, and we can see different types of models. And here we also have ChatGPT 5 that we can start to use. And this really helps us with clarity. So if we're starting to say, summarize a document, and we also have this neat / with the paid for version, where we can go through and choose, like, summarize a NDA, or we can actually choose a document from our OneDrive. And then we get quite a nice, succinct, human-sounding summary. And that's one of the major differences with GPT-5 as compared to the previous models, where it's almost really, really hard, if you look at the summary that's in here, to tell, like, did a human write this or did an AI write this? Maybe some of the bullet points give it away here, or the types of tones, but it's significantly better than what we've seen in the previous models. But let's go through the interface a little bit more before we go deeper into the prompting here. So we've got search capability. So this is how you're able to now search across different aspects of your organization. You can also connect this to different types of content. So think of like the data setting in Confluence, data setting in OpenText, Workday, ServiceNow, knowledge articles, all that sort of knowledge can now be searched from M365 once you integrate it. And here we've got like a search experience where we can search for different types of information. Then we've got the chat. We have agents. So here you can see agents from like the agent store. Researcher and analyst are great first-party agents to try. Researcher helps you with deep research, and analyst helps you almost like analyze a spreadsheet and get some data insights into it very, very quickly. Then we have the create agent, or the agent sprawl button. This is what's going to create a personal agent for each person, and it doesn't have much life cycle controls And so I think most enterprise orgs are currently turning this off and rather letting people kind of come up with a prompt or a couple of different series before building a full agent in Copilot Studio. And we also have some other nifty things. So we've got like with notebooks. This is where we can focus Copilot on a set of information. So I'm almost calling this like the digital folder, or a kind of a closed project where we're going to go and call something like ABC, Project ABC, or latest about this. And then we can actually go and reference a whole bunch of content into this folder. So what's quite nice here is if you are searching across documents, you'll use the chat. If you want to search further back in time, you'll use researcher. But if you wanted to focus on a specific topic or specific documents, then you'll use a notebook. And you'll see they're also starting to bring this stuff together. So now inside of chat, you can mention an agent. And here in the notebook, you can also start to call on the researcher agent directly. So this is like the pro full AI assistance that you're getting. You've also got a get audio overview button, where you can generate like a podcast style audio file of the documentation that you've referenced. And it's quite nice and easy to add a reference. You can go and choose a whole bunch of files, search for files, or open your OneDrive.
Just a question. What you're showing here is a GA'd.
All of this is GA'd, and this is all the licensed stuff. I'm not going to really touch on the free stuff just yet.
Because you had a story expander agent.
Yes. That is the agent that I wrote. That's a custom agent.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because
so these are the ones that you can build.
All agents? Okay, cool.
Yeah, so these are all the ones that are built with Microsoft. These are templates: prompt coach, career coach, idea coach, writing coach, learning coach. These are all templates of agents. And then these are the new ones that are starting to come with the Frontier program, and other agents that I've built through Copilot Studio.
Okay.
So it's just to give you an idea of like what one of these deep reasoning agents can do. It really helps you if you look at these three prompts. You can analyze data, you can get insights, you can visualize different things. And what's quite nice is you can ask it a prompt. I'm going to go back to one of the histories because it takes a bit of time to run these prompts, because it doesn't just like run the prompt and give an answer. It actually reasons over the content. So you can see here it interprets the task. It starts to prepare the data for a table. And as you click through this, it's explaining like what it's doing. And here's the first round of data that it's analyzed. So in this case, we told it like to analyze the volume of each planet, and calculate the multiples of Earths. So you can see the difference in the volumes. And then you can ask it like, show me a bar chart, and it'll actually go and prepare the Python code for a bar chart. So this is writing like the equivalent of matplotlib or one of the Python libraries, where it's actually taking, these are like typical data science type flows, that's writing all the code for you. It's running the code, and then it's actually generating that visualization, which is quite cool. And then the researcher agent does something very similar to that, but now it's like looking at research. So you can decide like what sources do you want to research. So do you want to search the web? Do you want to search all your work information? Do you want to search specific SharePoint sites or specific emails or meetings or chats? So it's quite vast. And this typically goes back quite a lot further in time. So some use cases here that I think are really, really cool are things like a project update report, a topic report, analyze the last 3 months, analyze the last month. Whereas in chat, I think the timeline is a bit more constrained, like maybe a week or maybe 5 or 6 documents, but not everything. So researcher does something very similar. And here, like you could do a whole bunch of different ones here. Like I think I did cache devices in Africa. It might be a good one. And it does exactly the same thing. It starts to reason. It starts to search all those different sources. It asks you questions to kind of figure out if there's a particular focus or a specific type of research that you're after. And then it again goes through and runs hundreds of thousands of prompts and takes about 15 or 20 minutes before it gives you an outcome or a result. Then we also have pages, which are quite interesting. So as you are prompting and getting responses back from Copilot, like let's go back here to the summarization that we did. You can actually start to edit this. So there's a little pencil button at the bottom. And this allows you to open it up and like work on it like you were working on a Word document, as an example. In fact, there's now a direct export to Word option as well, where as you prompting Copilot and saying, well, can you make this a table, you can actually now take this content and add it directly to a loop page or a page inside of Copilot. So it's quite nice, really like kind of a nice collaborative.
You could export it to a loop workspace before, though, a loop page.
Yeah, exactly.
But it will do Word now, right? Which it didn't do before.
Yeah, exactly. It now just goes straight to Word, which is quite cool.
Yeah.
And it's really simple. You just say open in Word. It says I'm working on it. Typical SharePoint kind of concept here. And then it gives you a file which you can just open, and it opens directly in your OneDrive, which is pretty cool. Then the last feature that I'll kind of touch on is really the create section. There's a ton in here, and you could spend all day just demoing some of these things. But there's a lot of concepts here where instead of us starting from the traditional Office apps, so here you've got the apps section, you can open your Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all the different apps that you work with. Notice also Clipchamp is now here, so that's really cool. Like if people are wanting to do a bit more video messaging, you can use Clipchamp. And Create now takes the concepts of where we would start in Word, start in Excel, start in PowerPoint, but like now starting from an AI side. So now we can create directly from the chat experience, which is quite cool. So we can create an image, we can create a video, we can design an infographic, create a story, and much, much more. Posters, images, forms, banners, drafts, surveys, and we can apply a branding, which is quite nice. So to show you some examples of these, again, as you start to prompt, so create me an image of Copilot 0 to hero as an advert for session 9 with a photo realistic camera. Like maybe there's something like that you want to do. You can go and add additional types of content, so an image, a work file, upload a file, and you can choose different types of styles, which is quite nice. So you could make it like photorealistic, as I did in the prompt, or you could say like maybe it needs to be whimsical 3D or a cinematic shot for some sort of product update, as an example. So let's choose cinematic in this example, and then we can also go and choose our branding and colors. So here we can actually now see the SharePoint Brand Center pulling into Copilot as well. So if you've got it connected up, you'll see the brands listed over here. Otherwise, you can go and create a brand kit and apply that brand kit directly, which is quite nice. So you can upload your fonts, you can do all those kind of consistent branding exercises there. And then you can also decide on the size. So do you want it to be portrait, wide, square for social media? And it gives you different pixelizations and the sizes. And then you can just go and hit create, and it'll kind of get to work based on your prompting. And then it starts to become a little bit like Photoshop, which is quite cool. So we've got edit, we've got suggesting, we've got branding, we've got layers, we've got visuals, we've got markups. It's quite amazing how this technology has come to light inside of just like from an editing images point of view and what you can do there. I'll let it go, and we'll probably come back to the output. But whilst I'm doing that, let me also just open Word for you, and I'll do this in the browser because it's just a bit easier to demo, to switch from tab to tab. But you can start to see the new logos that have come out. So we've got new Word and Office icons that have come through. And if we go and create a blank document here, first thing I want to teach you is just like how to open Copilot or how to get to Copilot. So the first thing I'll show is like typically along the ribbon, you have the ability to find the Home tab, and then the Copilot button appears on the right-hand side. I'm hoping that this loads up. Doesn't seem like it wants to. But it's actually opened another tab. 1 second. Let's try that again. Okay, let's just open one of these documents. Okay, so like as an example, here we've got our legal contract. As soon as your Copilot license gets applied, you get this really cool summarization feature at the top. And this is the button L that you were talking about. Like if we go to the classic ribbon here, which I think is what most people are familiar with, this Copilot icon will now appear, and you can now chat directly with the internet from your documents.
So this is the web one. If you open up Word, you've got a drop down that says chat or talk to canvas or whatever they're calling it, right?
Exactly.
It's abstracted between what's happening in the chat experience, and then also contextually, from the canvas, interrogate the actual document. There's that
100%.
they've added that new drop down now, where you can
100%.
do both. Yeah.
So you'll see here in the licensed version, you've got this concept of work and web coming through here. You've also got the enterprise data protection coming through, and you've got some other like kind of buttons here where you can personalize Copilot and do all these sorts of things. But really, the differences are going to be in this agent mode that they start speaking about. So here, you'll see if I want to message Copilot about this agreement, I can actually call my agents directly from here. So I can like call my story expander from here. Maybe it's a contract review assistant. And so I can actually like chat directly with the contract review assistant and just say like summarize this contract. And it will now follow that instruction that is inside of the agent and analyze this document on the page, but also be able to search all of your work data at the same time. So it's kind of like when we used to have that concept of, I think it was references, and you had research or citations or somewhere in here, you used to be able to search the web and kind of get all these citations pulled in. That's now going to be part of like the Copilot chat, and this more advanced kind of like feature-rich AI assistance is going to be the licensed version, where you'll see this option where you can like start to chat to agents and utilize other features within Word. What's also quite cool is if I just click on some of these buttons, like you can get writing suggestions, of course, with the licensed version as well. As you are prompting Copilot, you can also add content. So you could say like add a new paragraph, and then you could go attach like one of the previous documents that you're working on. Like maybe it's an executive speech, or maybe it's another non-disclosure agreement where you want to pull a section from that into this new document. So that's really, really cool to see. And then it's got other features, like if I highlight all the text, we can, again, tell Copilot to do things like update the structure it and refine it, visualize this as a table, update it with this. And that's really cool, where we can take like bullet points and turn it into tables and kind of transform the content really, really quickly. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of an idea of what you can do, but also highlights to you like, how do you explain all these different features to somebody who just uses like 10% of Office today, right? Or 20% of Office today. So it's really a long learning journey that we need to take people on, and a lot of new features that we have to expose them to, and really go back to like the basics where we're telling people like, what are the capabilities, and then how do you apply them to your role. And I think this sets the stage really, really quickly, because some people might only be used to using text, or like they'd spend a lot of time drafting documents, emails, reports, creative writing, but they may not ever use images or video in their style of work. Or maybe they have like a lot of client meetings, but they don't ever transcribe the verbal speech that they spoke into text, or analyze for sentiment, language, or keywords. It opens up a lot of new kinds of information flows that we can start to use. And this is why we need a really strong change and adoption program, and also a communication plan that goes with it, to help people get to that aha moment that they're kind of starting with. Yeah, Tracy.
Yeah, I have a question. So companies who's not gone full blown like Copilot licenses yet. So
yeah,
the step for them to start using it is to get used to the free version of it. Okay. What do you think we should tell people? So let's talk about the text creation and stuff. What is the thing companies have to be careful of when it comes to content creation in the free version? You get a lot of companies that can't have IP and stuff that goes out. So what is there anything you can share with me that we think we should share with companies before they move on to the paid version of Copilot?
Yeah, like one of the things I think is quite top of mind for me is obviously the security conversation. And when I mean the security conversation, it's also the shadow AI conversation at the same time. So, people are watching Instagram Reels and YouTube tutorials of how to be proficient in all these AI tools. There's a lot of adverts as well that says that you need to learn 29 tools to be an AI expert. And, this one is this tool and this subscription, and this is this tool and another subscription. I think starting with what you have as a base from Microsoft, just learning to prompt and learning what these capabilities are, text to speech, summarization, comparison, creating text, is it still good text? Is it bad text? Is it biased text now? Like these are all going to be new workflows that we have to go through. One of the things that I think is a game changer for like even the value added license is that it stays within the customer's tenant. So it uses OneDrive. Whatever you upload to the chat goes into the OneDrive. So you're not uploading your data directly to the internet, which I think is a big saving grace, even for the chat version. So I always tell people to look out for the enterprise data protection, read up what that means so that you understand like what type of information you can upload there, and to start building out those policies and center of excellences that we spoke about in the previous session. So Trace, that's what I would say. Like start with the chat version, use it to the max, but set expectations around what you can do with it and help people personify it within their organization so that they know, like, do they need a Teams premium meeting, a license because they're just doing a lot of meeting recaps? Or do they need the full power of an AI assistant because the volume of work that is coming their way now from a digital kind of footprint or digital transformation perspective, like warrants that full license or the agent that is going to enable that department to do this process more efficiently?
I think I just want to add some, like a little bit more to my question there, is that, again, let's say free version chat, right? If people start using it in the company, what part of that content is protected? Or because it's the normal, I'm saying free chat, is it as exposed as ChatGPT? I'm keen to understand that.
Hold on. If you log onto your desktop with your organizational account and you go to portal.office.com and it redirects you to the chat interface, and you upload a document and you say, summarize the document.
Yeah.
That lives inside of your tenant. Doesn't go, okay. That version, that Copilot, that chat, not the free one that, the consumer version of it, right?
Yeah, the business
They're not
version.
Training the model against your information like, the Perplexities of the world or whoever else may or may not be doing. It's what Jason said. There's a little button on the top that says enterprise protection or whatever it's called. There's a little shield, right, when you log in, that manages the contextualization of the conversation and also the security guardrails around it. Yeah, that one there.
Yeah. So this shows they're basically logged in with their work accounts, and if you open this up, right, it actually gives you like a full breakdown of what this really means. And I'll spend a minute on this because it's really, really important that people understand this. Like I think there's too many generative AI tools out there that do similar things with similar capabilities. Or different experiences or different flavors of something when it really could just be like the language you use in the prompts that makes a lot of the difference. So for me, I think this is a huge win. The fact that it's already encrypted, it lives within the same OneDrive and controls that you've put in place there. But at the same time, like, I think the level of protection needs to change, right? In the past, we used to tell people to put in like passwords to protect their spreadsheets. And, if it was sensitive, lock down the SharePoint site. I think we now need to move towards encryption, like as a more improved document type security, because only encryption stops AI from reading that model or your role-based access controls. And you'll see here that Copilot respects all of that you put in place.
Third party would stop. If a threat actor got in with some sort of AI, they can't read your data unless they're authorized to do so. So if you apply a sensitivity label, a default sensitivity label to all your documents, it does nothing except encrypt. Yeah. So from a threat actor perspective, if they had access to your content without using an identity that has access to the content, they won't be able to see it. Right. Exactly. So, we talk to customers, as much as Microsoft's got the technical readiness where you now need to start labeling everything and you need to add some sort of protection to it, just switch on labeling as a default label and just do encryption. You don't have to give permissions to specific, just do encryption. And you're 9/10 of the way there. If someone gets in, they're not going to get in without compromising an identity, possibly. But either way, if they compromise an identity, even with encryption, your content can still be extracted because that identity has access to content inside of that encrypted document.
And then the last 2 points I'll raise is just these last two, things like harmful content. These consumer tools don't have these protections in. You can create really harmful content. You can mimic people's identities. You can do potentially prompt injections. You've got maybe copyright concerns. Like, I think these are the big things that corporations or businesses should be protecting themselves against. And that comes like almost standard, right? If you prompt even like slightly sarcastic, Copilot blocks you and ends the conversation. If you ask for something angry or something harmful, you pretty much just get blocked from the responsible AI. So I think those are the things that for me are like big game changers as part of like just being able to access a new essentially chat website that people can now go to start to summarize their information. It's a huge amount of value.
Jason, Kate's got a hand up.
Go for it, Kate.
I'm just wondering, so if we're looking at something like POPIA compliance for a client, should we be recommending beyond the normal standard security controls that we definitely do encryption as well?
Well, let's talk about POPIA, right? So protection of personal information. If you've got, it's very similar to, and it's personally identifiable information, right? So if you've got any content that has people's names, surnames, addresses, and the GDPR type stuff in a document, and you're exposing that to Copilot, Copilot's going to give you information about it back. Not a problem, right? When POPI becomes a thing is if there's unauthorized access to that content. So start thinking about sort of insider risk or data leak prevention. Right, then it becomes a thing inside of your organization. If someone from marketing's got access to HR data about a person who is now HIV positive and they had to declare that to HR, right? For whatever medical reasons, they have to declare that. That is a different conversation, and that's got nothing to do with Copilot. It's got everything to do with, how do you secure confidential and highly confidential or secret and top secret information inside of your organization. Right?
Yeah, but that would be labeling, not encryption.
Well, encryption's not going to do anything, right? Encryption's just going to make sure that a third-party person who doesn't have an identity inside of your environment, they won't be able to see content, right? Because
I see. So it's related to third parties. Okay, no, that's fine. Thank you.
There's an authentication context there. If you've got POPI data, apply a sensitivity label and assign a specific group that will have access to it. Everyone else inside of your organization won't. Then it becomes an information protection conversation, not a Copilot exposure conversation.
Okay, thank you.
But you'll see in every demo I do this happens. You start off by showing 3 or 4 things, and people have a lot of questions, right? So that's where our training and our sessions and awareness sessions really need to help out. So I'm really grateful for all these questions because it kind of showcases a real life. You've done your first demo of Copilot. Now what? Now what do we do, right? And so, like, when I think about communication, I think it's very, very important that we let people have the information that they need. So I asked Copilot to help me generate some of these diagrams. And what I found interesting was like all the icons and little faces and things it does, but it's actually really accurate in how I think about this. So there's a lot of information that Microsoft provides. There's webinars, there's events, there's feature updates, there's release notes, there's training guides. There's almost too much information for you to consume at all at once. So what I like to do here is kind of go through building out the strategy. What is the goal? What are the scopes? What are the outcomes? Take all the information that a Microsoft sales representative or training partner would give you, and then filter it down to just the info that I need and share that across the channels that we use. So maybe use WhatsApp, maybe use email, maybe use Teams, or maybe use a combination of them. So from a Microsoft point of view, or like a strategic point of view, one of the things that it should do is answer 3 big questions. So who are we talking to? What is the audience? What do they need to know? How will we deliver it? And so segmentation of your audience is quite critical. The way I think you can do this is at some point you'll have either a user account list, maybe a license assignment list, and you should have some information in there about who the person is, their email address, their job role, their profile, maybe sensitive information like their age or other kind of metadata around that person. And that'll help you build out the different audience segmentations there. And from a message theme point of view, we get a lot of questions around, will AI take my role? What are the aspects of my job that are no longer kind of relevant? What are the new job aspects that I'm going to have for my role? All sorts of adoption messages, feature, education, training, infographics, all sorts of messages that you'll need to share. And then how do we deliver it? So here you'll do channels, you'll do cadence, maybe you'll do team meetings, maybe you'll do posters in the office, maybe you'll do digital banner boards. It doesn't really matter which channel you go on it, but how frequently can you do that? And what does that look like for the cadence of those channels? So a lot of organizations already have pre-planned content calendars. So getting Copilot onto those calendars is quite challenging as well. But with AI, I think we've been chatting about this for a really long time from like a SharePoint intranet point of view. You know, how can we personalize this? How can we tailor the messages by role, by location, like really hyper-personalized? With Copilot now, you can actually do this really, really easily. You can say, think like a marketing person, tell me how to use Copilot, and it'll spit out a kind of a piece of text that is more tailored to that type of audience, that uses the language that audience would use. So I think it's really possible now to do a lot of personalization. And then I put down multi-channel orchestration, because one of the things we learned in Copilot 0 to, well, like kind of being customer 0, and, you know, just all the training that I've done, is some people read SharePoint News, some people use Viva Engage, some people get a Teams message. Some customers are using Viva Amplify, which is a tool that kind of allows you to do multi-channel at once. And then some people just use email. And so you've got to tailor to different people's preferences here. And you could also kind of ask them, like, what channel do you want us to communicate with you on? And almost send it down that channel. And you can do this by coming up with the different segments as well. What's really important is also the leadership voice. So making sure that you're humanizing the change.
Jason,
yeah.
just to qualify, for those that want to use Viva Amplify, it's $2 per user per month, on top of whatever subscription you have.
Thank you.
Vitally important. But
yeah,
I would recommend that you spend the money. Out of all the Viva products, sorry, Kevin, I do think that Amplify is the glue, not Engage. Just before he says something about it. Amplify is amazing because it will give you the multi-channel orchestration. Create one campaign, create a couple of templates. It'll publish a Teams, SharePoint News. It'll even give you an email digest of it, and it will populate inside of Teams and Viva Engage. So if you're going to drive communications and you want to use a all-encompassing tool that will literally give you that omni-channel, multi-channel deployment, I'm not going to make you rant about goals, right? But I believe that Amplify is a great hidden gem inside of the Viva stack that is probably going to weather the entire storm next to Engage, because Engage is not going anywhere. But speak to your marketing and communication people, show them what Amplify does. It's a great tool. It's $2 per user per month.
I think, and I could be wrong here, I'm not too close to this product, but I think it even gives you prepackaged communication plans as well. So it gives you like this is the new tool from Microsoft. Here's all the stuff, and you can just kind of schedule it.
If it's still pulling that data from somewhere, it might be, but they'll give you a templated stack, right? And help you. I'm not sure if there's Copilot for Viva Amplify, because that would be cool though.
I think there is. But anyway, these are the kind of tools and the channels that we'll use. Okay, let's keep going. Slide 4. We're running out of time. Okay, so here really the primary goal is to kind of inform, excite, equip people to use Copilot safely and effectively. Notice that safety is built in like all the way from the beginning. So security, safety, prompting, those are kind of like the 3 key themes and messages that you'll do. One of the things here is like the desired outcome is the awareness, right? So you either want the awareness to improve, the readiness to improve, or the adoption to improve. And here's where we really bring in that ACM aspect to measure like what is the impact of this new tool. on this segment of users, and how can we make it easier for them to go through the change process, right? So people go through awareness, they go through desire, they go through resistance, and you kind of go through these different phases, just like a project kind of form. So one of the places that I go to get some inspiration is the message center. I still find customers that don't see this, so I wanted to include this today. Here I'm using Clipchamp to actually do the recording, and you can actually filter by all the different Microsoft services that are inside of M365. You need to have an admin role that allows you access to the message center. But here you can actually go and see all sorts of types of messages and filter them by, like, is it for user impact? Is it for admin impact? Like, what are the different comms that we can share? And I think the information in here is great. It gives you a summary. It gives you a specific when, what, how, where, screenshots, everything that you can do to prepare, and then even compliance issues at the bottom, like what you should think about from a compliance point of view. And they're quite detailed. So this is quite cool. It links to the roadmap as well. And you can easily kind of share these over email to up to 2 people, and then you can kind of repurpose this content for other change and adoption pieces. And then the other source of content is really the adoption website. So this is adoption.microsoft.com. And you'll see here it splits it by product. So you've got Copilot Chat, Copilot, and Copilot Studio. And if you go down a bit there to user engagement and tools, you can actually get to like all the different tools and templates. And I pretty much copy paste this page and share this with a lot of my customers to say, like, here's the chat training guide. If you want to run your own Train the Trainer series, here's the handouts. Here's a full campaign kit, the 30-day skilling experience with email templates already pre-provisioned. And the idea here is that you would just co-brand these with your company logo, right? And then there's a separate track for the licensed users as well. So you can drive like the Copilot Chat, and then you can drive the licensed Copilot users as part of 2 separate journeys, because the features differ slightly. And even like guides on how to get started with the researcher and analyst agents, kind of recommended prompts, prompt ingredients, handouts. It's all here, so you don't have to create content from scratch. So what do we do with all this information? So the first thing is audience strategy and segmentation. So here, really, we want to build out some sort of training portal. The training portal should have touch points like maybe a training newsletter opt-in, and that starts to collect some of the information that allows us to apply the different filters, right? So an example of a persona map might be something similar to this, where we have maybe managers, frontline staff, executive assistants, IT admins, Copilot champions, and developers. And they all have different key needs. Is the slide still showing up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Persona map.
Okay, yeah, so here you'll see, the different key needs that each of those personas have. And most of the Microsoft slides have limited personas. So most of the, like the adoption kit will have business users as a whole, IT pros as a whole, and developers. Like those are the audiences that we provide as a standard. And then, you'd have to kind of go deeper if as and when you need to. And then you can also kind of guess what channels they might be engaging on, or kind of look at some of the analytics to get an idea of which channel would be most relevant, or speak to some of the head of departments, like which channel do you have the most success on engaging your users. Sometimes this will be WhatsApp, sometimes it'll be email. I think moving people to engage is a good option as well. So you get that kind of thread conversation going, but use the channel that's kind of going to reach your users. And so how can we build out these segments? Well, one of the things that's quite nice is inside of Entra, you can work with your identity manager here. You can actually build out Copilot audiences directly here as Microsoft 365 groups. And you can build out dynamic group types. So this is quite nice. This is what we used to do in SharePoint on-prem, where we'd build up these dynamic membership rules and get different types of properties to filter on. So maybe like, is their account enabled? That would be the first qualifier. Are they in the sales department? Yes, they are. Do they have a Copilot license? Yes, they do. That would be audience 1. And then you could go back and build out separate audiences for each of these. This becomes a little bit important later on. And I'm going to show you here how I'm thinking about this. So once we've categorized our employees by role, department, location, now we have our segments, right? So we've got our organization, audience kind of segments. The next part that we want to move on to is how can we like personalize this content delivery to each one of those roles. So typically what marketing teams do, they'll build out like a content training plan. They'll have a calendar on different types of kind of messaging themes, where they want to post those things to. And then, of course, your audience segmentation, you could either do with distribution lists as an alternative if you don't want to use the dynamic groups, or just manually add people to a group as well. So there's all sorts of different types of ways that you can build out this audience as well. And then, as we saw in that persona map, you want to make sure that the messages are tailored, they're addressing their concerns. You might even want to do some interviews here to make sure that the messages line up. And then you can actually target this specifically on a SharePoint site. So I'm going to start our journey today from the SharePoint site. So moving on to AdCar. So AdCar is a change methodology as part of the ProSci framework. And the idea here is that you start to bundle this up together. So you've got the AdCar stages, you'll have the core themes, and then that ties into the personas. So think of like your age, your role, your interests here. And also all the documentation that you can do by phase. So Microsoft gives you a ton of training material as well. So often in this conversation, it's kind of like when you send out a comms and then you go on training, and like, do we have the training stuff first and the comms stuff first? And it's kind of a whole mixture here. So I'm kind of bundling it up into one here just to show you that like we also have training per phase. So, getting ready, these are all the Copilot experiences explained. What do we do from a leadership perspective? And then you'll notice that the audiences here only have two segments, user enablement and technical readiness. So we don't go down to the depth that I think a lot of businesses need, but this is a good starting point that you can then adapt to those further segments. So an update on our persona map, this is probably what it will look like now. So we'll have the AdCar stage for awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. And you will track each group of these users as to which stage they're in from a ProSci point of view. So you would actually do it kind of an interview with the executives. You'd understand like how does Copilot or generative AI impact them? Where are they? Are they feeling like a little bit sure about it? Do they know about Copilot? Then they'll probably be in the awareness stage. If they've already started to get time saved and they have like a full-blown leadership prompt library, then they're probably in the kind of a knowledge phase. But you kind of want to walk the users through these phases, and that gives you the best chance of adoption and least change resistance. So now you can see we've started to get our themes. We've got our different admins here and kind of one-line topic titles at this point. So how do we enable audiencing? So the first thing is on the navigation. If you click on edit and you kind of go down to the toggle, you can toggle on the audiencing, and then you can also go down to the site pages library and target on audiencing here for the site pages. I don't know if there's a more modern way of doing it. This is how you can do that from the old ways that I know of. And so this is how we enable the audiencing. And then how do we now use these audiencing? So once we are creating our sort of news posts, you'll go through and you'll see there's a whole lot of different types of content types now. And here under the page details, you can actually now target that news post to a specific audience. And so this will be that audience that we created in either the dynamic group or an M365 group, and or a security group. They all work, and you can target the content to those different pieces. So that's how we can get to that kind of hyper personalization. Also, you'll see that the SharePoint pages are really, really nice now. You've kind of got this, what you see is what you get experience. You can also edit a lot of the different properties of each of the different web parts, and you've got a ton of web parts that you can use, like text, image, video, files, all sorts of predefined templates and layouts that you can use for all types of kind of content. So why is it important that we're starting from a SharePoint Online point of view? So you'll see here that as I'm kind of building this out and maybe changing a few things, I've got the accessibility assistant as well. And I also have the ability to change like themes, and I can post and send this page. And so as I post and send it, right, what we want to do is now decide on what are the channels that we want to share this news on. So is it a social media audience? Is it an internal audience? Is it an external audience? That's really the first thing we have to get right. And then like, what are the channels that our users use? And are they burnt out in terms of the notifications that they're getting already? So like this, whenever I think of channels and new notifications and new notices that are going out, the first thing I think of is like, how can we reduce the number of notifications that they get, and but share enough information that they drive the adoption that we need. So one of the ways that we can do this is, as we're building out that communication, we can actually preview what this looks like across desktop, mobile, and email. So this is quite new. We've got this SharePoint option now where we build a SharePoint page and we can actually view that SharePoint page directly in email. This is pretty cool for a number of reasons. Firstly, there's always been like kind of a silo where we've got email marketing in one tool set. We've got content marketing or content management in a different tool set. This SharePoint news aspect kind of brings us together, where we've now got a multi-channel experience here and also multi-platform. So we can see this in email, we can see this in mobile, we can see this in desktop. And it's all from one place. And so as you kind of rolling this out, it's really, really integrated from that perspective. So we can now create a news post that is an email-friendly newsletter that sends directly to inboxes and cross-posted to our communities. So think about somebody is the content manager, they're creating all of these posts, they're gonna create them all in SharePoint, and then instead of them copying and pasting that message into Viva Engage, they can now just share the news post directly from that. Instead of them copying and pasting that into an email, they can just send the page via email. So it opens up some really kind of time-saving aspects there as well, where people don't have to rework some of this content. And then what's quite nice is you can kind of also add this rich embeddedness to this. So maybe you want to add a video into it. The video plays inline in Outlook. They don't have to open up YouTube, or it's like directly there if you're publishing it on Clipchamp and Stream. And then you can start to kind of unify your content publishing. So kind of write once, publish everywhere across Outlook, Teams, Engage, and SharePoint. And that's what Viva Amplify does really, really well, that Al was mentioning earlier. One of our customers actually created a podcast similar this way. So they actually recorded themselves on a Teams meeting, like really informal podcast, put it into SharePoint News, and then cascaded that through the organization as well. Okay, so let's have a look at this. So how do we promote this? So there's a really cool button once you've published the page, and we can click promote. The promote button is like somewhere up here. And then we can actually go and you'll see all sorts of helpful actions. We can add it to the navigation. Remember, we can audience navigation, and like so different audiences will kind of see and hide content that's only relevant to them. So the navigation could be completely different for managers than it is for employees, that it is for IT pros, and they would see different navigation links. The same way that the content in the page could also be audienced. So the whole page could be relevant to one audience. On the news reels and the posts that they see, it will only be targeted to them. So they won't see general messages that don't respond to them. They'll see very specific messages that are relevant to them. And then here you saw at the end of this video, just like how they're cross-posting it to Viva Engage. I'll play that one last time, but like it's really, really simple. You click on Viva Engage, and it comes in with the link. Maybe you select the community that you're now a community manager on, and you can update the body, and you click post, and that's it. It's like it's now in Engage, and people have been notified. So that's an example of the kind of cross publishing there. Ideally, the community should have been named like Copilot Champions or Copilot Adoption instead of All Company, but maybe there is a post that you want to share to All Company. So what about some advanced workflows? So I often get asked questions like, what about scheduling? So on the Pages library, you can enable scheduling, and you can also enable approval if you've got more of like a central approval model. So as you're creating all these posts, if they need to go through like central comms or branding before they get launched, you can also create these page approval workflows directly inside of SharePoint News as well. So this wouldn't be useful if we didn't have like measurement and feedback, right? So as we are doing all of these comms, what we really want is the ability to see, is the campaign doing well? Have we generated interest? Has the adoption gone up? So we spoke about, I think, the usage dashboards before. So you still have the usage dashboards inside of the modern work and M365 admin centers. But when it comes from a comms point of view, we also have multi-level analytics. So you'll see analytics are provided at a community, campaign, and network levels. So inside of Viva Engage, you've got a full analytics aspect. And then you've got different kind of indicators. These might include things like views, comments. Some of these are maybe a little bit incorrect here, like open rates and click rates, but you'll be able to see quite a lot from it being inside of the SharePoint News. And then you can start to bring in like more of a survey aspect as well. So here you want to maybe do like a kind of, how are we doing? Would you recommend Copilot to a friend, a family, a colleague? Rate me on a scale of 1 to 10. Like you want to bring in that kind of sentiment so you can see how people are doing.
Not the recommending Copilot to a friend or family. That's Microsoft stuff. That's not stuff that you put in a survey. Please.
That's like a typical kind of relevance feedback loop. Yeah. Okay. So what does this look like? So I tried to take a whole bunch of screenshots. It's really hard to explain this really quickly. So this is the site analytics. So you can see things like unique viewers, site visits. This would be over your adoption site, and you would see something similar for the Viva Engage community. And if you create a Microsoft 365 group, you can attach these things, right? So you can create a group and you can attach a site. You can create a group and you can attach a community. And you can attach a Teams channel as well if you want to do that. But here you can start to see some of the visits, some of the information here. You can see the top news post as an example. What device are they coming in at? How many times a day are they visiting? And how long are they spending there? And interestingly enough, like getting to 6 minutes per user per site is actually really hard. Like most websites, people lose interest in less than a minute. And they move away very quickly, or they move to the content that they're most after. So the way that we measure that engagement is then by like what time of day are they visiting the site? How can we publish our news post when it's most likely that people are going to read the news post? And so we give you some insights there on that from a site perspective. But we also do it from a page perspective. So this next section is about per page. So here now we've sent through the news post, we've promoted it on all the different channels, like where are they engaging with the content? So this is quite cool. We couldn't do this like maybe 5 years ago. I don't think we could do this. We couldn't publish one news post and measure it across Outlook, measure it across the SharePoint intranet, and then measure it across Teams and Engage. Or like some customers just kind of went, well, we're using Outlook and SharePoint, and that's all we're using. And then they had like comments and discussion forums and all sorts of stuff baked into the intranet. But this is quite nice. This is really powerful now that we can see per channel what those analytics look like. And then it goes further and it goes like, well, what are the total views for this news post? So maybe you're tracking like, did we land a message I'll use an example because we're in October, like Copilot for Halloween. Did that theme resonate with a lot of people? Yes or no? And then you can decide whether you're going to repeat that campaign or go further down those topics. So this is for those types of analytics, and we can start to see like how many views did it have, how many unique views did it have, what was the time they spent on that news post, are people getting through all the article, or they're only getting partway through the article, and you can kind of go through and see these different types of metrics here that are more, I suppose, relevant to like a marketing audience than most. So to end off with, also what I found interesting is that you can see reactions on a SharePoint page. I didn't know that you could do this, that you could actually react on a news post. And I suppose this is pulling through from the Viva Engage as well, where you can see positive reactions, negative reactions, and other reactions. And then the analytics goes further onto like the more social media for work kind of aspect. So if you open up Viva Engage, you've got another whole dashboard there of information around how people are engaging as part of the social media kind of community that you're running there as well. So what I wanted to leave you with was quite a number of resources. So this could be an idea of like a layout of one of these adoption pages. It could be like a video portal. So we have a whole bunch of tutorials that actually come from the stream migration, but we have a whole bunch of links here that talk you through building out a training site, building out a video portal, building out an intranet as like a base sample for you to get started, to get to a page that looks something similar to this. and then take all the content that that we've provided as part of the success kit and the adoption kit to then build out that communication plan and then share the news in this sort of fashion. And then there's other building blocks, like maybe you're not that familiar with building a page or editing a web part. There's some links there for you as well that talk about that. Yeah, and then just maybe to close off, like I think it's really important to firstly work with creating those audiences, right? Having the audiences, having the base set up is really, really important, because then we can kind of bulk plan our content, start to create all the SharePoint pages that we need, and then you can schedule them for going live or schedule them to be promoted. And so that's quite nice. Second thing here is monitoring of the campaigns or monitoring of the aspects. You'll notice I spent no time on content building, no time on writing pages, no time on putting up training decks. That's because in the first slide where I showed you the adoption site, all of it is there. I don't think there's a huge amount of work that needs to happen there or rework. Maybe some minor personalization, but a lot of the content I think is fit for purpose or fit for that initial phase of get ready. Then you want to distribute the content. We spoke about this across all the different channels. Maybe you can even do some like internal micro podcasting and personalized email campaigns. But one of the things I want to stress in this is like, don't be afraid to just open a Teams call, speak with your users, show them what Copilot can do, like run them through like, hey, have you thought about like, what do you do in the day and what aspects of that job that you do could you use AI for? Having like open conversations, short calls, 20-minute webinars, 20-minute team calls has been also really, really effective in just like opening up that engagement and getting people to share ideas about what they can use Copilot for. So I'm going to go back to like where I started and just like remember that you've got core value in terms of summarization, creating text, summarizing text, analyzing the sentiment, analyzing video, analyzing images. There's a lot of value in those building blocks that we need to explain to users and then drive them towards creating these types of experiences and campaigns. I hope I did it justice. I'm not a comms and marketing person day by day, but I wanted to show you these cool features that we have because I think there's a lot of value in using some of this tech to help you run your campaign. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take a few before we end the session.
Tracy, your hand.
Thank you. Great demo, thanks, Jason. So I think what everyone must just remember, because what you covered was a lot of how we can do it and what it is that you have to do. But I think the biggest challenge that companies have is that from an end user perspective, Copilot's not important to them and Microsoft's not important to them and the tech that they use is not important to them. They're so overwhelmed with the work that they have to do and the projects that they're being exposed to and that's being thrown at them. I mean, in any given company, Microsoft is a small part of it. There's a new ERP project and a CRM project, and there's just so much going on. And as much as I love Viva Engage and SharePoint and using all of those tools together, there's such a big psychology behind how to fit this in there and making people understand that it's valuable for them to consume that content, because otherwise they won't. It's just more content that they actually ignore and don't consume. So that whole angle of where, when we go into companies with this being strategic and coming from a C-level point of view, it's not an IT project. It's not supposed to be just another app that's being pushed out. I think that's the most important, because you've got to make them hungry for it first. All the tools is there. Everything that you've just showed us now as well is incredible to do those type of things. But it's that thing. It's quite difficult to get people actually hungry to want to read that article or to go and want to learn more. And that's all because of the way that we've traditionally dealt with IT projects, how it just got thrown at the users and how they just got exposed to it. So that's definitely the toughest job, I think, is to go in there and to make sure that people understand that it's a strategic initiative and that the C-levels support it and that it eventually touches everyone and helps everyone. I think that's the toughest thing. It's a difficult thing to do.
Yeah,
So,
like we covered it really quickly in like I think the second slide, but you know, each one of these slides is probably like a week's worth of work. You know, like
yeah.
if we look at this piece here, just understanding your audience, like what's important to them, like how does
Yeah.
generative AI change their role? Like what does the HR policy say about generative AI? What am I allowed to do? What am I not allowed to do? Kate's question about what information can I upload to this thing? Like these are all part of those message themes that we need to deliver. And that's why I find like we often help customers do these tips and tricks, or we even came up with a name like tips in 20, where we had 25-minute sessions or 20-minute sessions where like just for that week we would just only speak about Copilot in Teams, just one topic at a time. So I completely agree with you, Tracy. There's a lot that comes into the strategic framework and planning before you just like posting out the news post.
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds like such a harsh thing, but I always say that a successful comms strategy isn't about touching on everything that can do with it. You actually got to touch on the things that hurt them. That's how you get people to think different about stuff. Is you don't start with what's new and what's going to be better. You actually target the stuff that doesn't work currently. So your campaigns actually revolve around how long does it take you to find something? How much time do you waste building a document? So there's a strange negative side to it as well, which lures people in, where you actually hammer on the things that frustrates them. And that's a lot of that feedback that you spoke about, is to even before you start out, speak to people and see what are they irritated with, what do they not like about what they do every day, what do they struggle with, what do they waste their most time on, and that kind of becomes the things that you actually target. So
yeah, and also making our users resilient, right? Like I'll go back to this message center demo for a second, because like I had a call earlier this week with a really frustrated user because the UI changed, and like there wasn't much that I could do, right? It's an evergreen service, it changes, and the message center notice wasn't read and wasn't communicated. So it's like even though we're talking about like a new technology and rolling out the new technology, as we're rolling out the technology, it's changing. And I looked for October. I think there's like just in October alone, there's over 30 Copilot notices for Copilot chat and Copilot already, just for October. Some of them are like more admin focused, and like some of them are user focused. So this campaign really has to be driven quite strongly, and not just for Copilot, but even for things like PowerPoint and Word and Outlook that are also changing daily.